Welcome to Direct Approach with Wayne Moorehead, a new podcast brought to you by Direct Selling News. If you're a direct selling executive looking to next level your strategy, marketing, and brand, this is the podcast for you. Host Wayne Moorehead, a DSU audience favorite, interviews some of the leading marketers and innovators in direct selling to help your marketing and branding teams motivate the field, inspire customers, and further your brand's reach and impact. In today's episode, Wayne is joined by Heather Chastain, founder and CEO of Bridgehead Collective. Heather brings an impressive understanding of sales, marketing, manufacturing, and operations, as well as a collaborative and relational leadership philosophy, all gained through 20 years of experience at direct selling powerhouses Arbonne, Shaklee, and BeautiControl. Wayne and Heather offer key takeaways and tips designed to help you integrate your product, brand, and digital strategies into one cohesive plan that everyone from the C-suite to distributors can get behind. Wayne and Heather will also share their thoughts on why founders and CEOs must create a culture that maintains their vision while letting new voices and ideas flourish. And the best part is they also dive into the how. And now, a word from our sponsor, Now Technologies.
Your brand can live in the hearts and minds of all kinds of people in many places. Today's marketplace is driven by storytelling and personal connections made with brands like yours. Now Tech provides you the future of marketing through a beautifully designed video and e-commerce suite. Now's video commerce technology gives your customers a truly seamless buying experience, which increases your cart value and boosts sales. Did you know? Viewers retain 95% of a video's message. 96% of shoppers rely on product videos when making a buying decision. 84% of people say they've been convinced to buy after watching a brand's video presentation. A video commerce customer reported a 358% increase in customer acquisition and 230% revenue growth. Storytelling and personal connections have always been at the heart of successful direct selling companies. Our video technology gives your brand the opportunity to influence, teach, and inspire the world. Now Tech. Proven technology from a trusted partner with 35 years of experience. Let's talk 310-428-9936 or email us at info@now-tech.com.
So let's get started. Here's your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today's guest, Heather Chastain, founder and CEO of Bridgehead Collective.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Direct Approach. Today, we have a very special guest who has had a really interesting and really impressive career. I'm excited to hear more about it. Heather Chastain, who is currently the founder and CEO at Bridgehead Collective, and we're going to learn a little bit more about what she's up to. But Heather, welcome to Direct Approach, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Wayne. I'm very excited to be here. I'm honored.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well. Again, as I mentioned kind of before we started recording, I've heard so many amazing things about you. Haven't had the chance to meet you, in person. So this is really exciting for me. So thank you. You've had a really, really interesting and really impressive career. You've been at some of the, most iconic brands in the channel in some pretty impressive roles. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of the path that led you into direct selling and to where you are today.
Sure. And, it's fascinating to me, the paths that people find their way into this industry, right? Because it's not like there's a whole generation of high school graduates going, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a direct selling executive, right? It's not. And it wasn't even an industry that I knew anything about growing up. I mean, my joke is I don't think my mom had so much as a Tupperware party. Like I had no exposure to this channel at all. And I actually, what I really wanted to do, I started out my career in cost accounting, working for a stainless steel manufacturing company. And what I really liked doing was being out on the shop floor. I liked making stuff. I thought it was really cool how a lot of people came together with an idea and a vision, and they made this tangible thing. And so I decided that I wanted to go into manufacturing. I'm not sure my parents thought that was the very best choice, but I managed to get a company to hire me to be the lipstick production manager on the lipstick manufacturing line. And it happened to be for a company called BeautiControl Cosmetics, who ultimately was purchased by Tupperware and sort of one of the early direct selling companies. When I joined, I had no idea it was a direct selling company. I just knew somebody was hiring me to do something I wanted to do. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then we went to our first global convention. And I was completely blown away. I was cutting through my job on site. I was one of the operations folks. So I was actually had my forklift license, loading and unloading trucks on the dock, right? And I end up cutting to the back of the ballroom. And there is one of our field leaders on stage. And she's talking about how she never believed in herself at all. And her upline, her leader, believed in her and saw something in her that she didn't see in herself. And she looked out at this audience. It was in the Opryland Hotel, Gaylord, the Gaylord in Nashville. I'm sure we've all been there. And I'll never forget that moment because she looks out at this audience and she says, "And look at me now." And this look of like triumph and happiness and pride. It was like, and I had no idea. I get goosebumps even now, every time I think about that moment, because I had no idea how what we did made that happen for her, but I knew that I wanted to learn more about it. And I wanted to figure out how that worked. What came together that made her change how she felt about herself, made her change her trajectory for her family, financially and emotionally. And it was a moment. And at that point, I went back and sort of oddly went and introduced myself to the owner of the company and said something awful like, "I just figured out what we do and I'd like to learn more about it." And then just started trying to pick up all the pieces that I could and learn about promotions and incentives and compensation plans and behavior changes and all the stuff that makes this industry what it is. And I've just been really, really fortunate to have had opportunities in just a wide range of functions within the industry. And I've loved every minute of it.
That's amazing. So you caught the bug.
I caught the
bug after that first, first event. Those, they're so important for especially people new into the channel to really see kind of the individual and collective impact that the channel has on people. Again, that's how I caught the bug as well.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about where you're at now. So you're at Bridgehead Collective.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to, not go back in-house somewhere, but to, help start your own consultancy agency? Why kind of have the outside in perspective versus kind of going back inside somewhere?
It's interesting. And honestly, I'm not sure I ever would have sort of said that's where I'm headed necessarily, but in the various roles I've had the privilege of serving in at all sorts of leadership levels, I had this idea for a while and really noticed that companies just struggle with innovation, internal innovation. They struggle with strategy and they struggle with innovation, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. And I know we're going to dig into a lot of that on this conversation. But I had this idea that if you could get a group of people together who had what's that commercial, who'd seen some things, right? Who had some experience, who had seen a thing or two and learned a thing or two along the way. But were really servant heart led, very humble, really wanted to just come in alongside organizations and partner with them to help create pathways of innovation and strategy within organizations. I had this idea that that's something that I would have been interested in if someone had come to me and said, "Hey, we can help you with this." And so I decided to see if there was a there, see if that's something that was interesting. I mean, what we're really focused on at Bridgehead Collective is delivering successful outcomes, whether we're called in to come support an existing team, like I've described, or spearhead an initiative. And that looks different for different companies, right? Sometimes what we're doing is helping people, organizations, which are people, a collection of people, crystallize their vision, help them really craft a picture of where they want to go and what that looks like. Some companies have a really clear idea of what that is. They know really that I know what I want, so we can maybe come in and help sort of figure out those next best steps to getting there, right? I think what sets us apart, though, is our ability to help execute through a team of battlefield-tested leaders, right? Whether it's strategy and innovation that we're going to talk about today, or figuring out how to successfully roll out a compensation plan change, or create an innovative program, or navigate the really complicated legal and regulatory world we're living in this industry right now, right?
Sure. No, that's great. And again, I love that you focus on, the implementation and the rollout, because, so often we all sit in these meetings and come up with great ideas. And then oftentimes they just kind of, end up staying, in that meeting and never really get rolled out. So,
and
really
that's both internal, right? I mean, we've all done that internally,
absolutely,
but it's also sort of why consultants get a bad name too, right? Because
absolutely.
It's so frustrating as an executive to write some big check, and what you got was like somebody who swooped in and made pronouncements about things that you probably knew anyway, and like delivered something and then left. And I've got no interest in any of that, right? We are all about coming in and getting to that outcome, getting to that successful place, because that's where you add value. That's what it's all about for our field. Yeah,
absolutely. That's amazing. I'm excited to hear more over time about your new venture, this new chapter for you. So digging in, you mentioned strategy and innovation, and as I spoke to a lot of people kind of in preparation for this interview, when your name came up, literally those were the first two things that everybody mentioned, strategy and innovation. A lot of companies go through some, really kind of high level, general planning process. And ultimately what they end up walking away with is kind of a list of activities, maybe a calendar, but not really a strategy. Mm-hmm. How can companies make sure that they walk away with a strategy and not just a plan, if that distinction is clear?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to phrase that distinction. I think the difference really is in mindset, right? Strategy, too often we think of strategy as a one-time event, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to go do strategy now. We're going to start strategic planning, right? Well, if you're at any point actually thinking that you're in an ongoing entity, that you're starting strategic planning, something is amiss, right? It isn't a one-time event. It's something that we need to do every day, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. There are touch points to fine-tune our strategy or adjust our strategy or make accommodations for internal challenges, external obstacles, changing environment, global pandemics, things like that require us to shift and pivot. But strategy, to me, the key is that it becomes part of your day-to-day. Like that it's integrated, not at the senior team level, but all throughout the organization.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. It does need to become kind of this, develop this muscle memory, internally, so that the whole organization is kind of moving and planning and making sure, I think also that the right inputs get brought in, or, that inform kind of what you do and why you're different. And so I love that definition. So obviously there's lots of different types of strategy. There's corporate strategy, brand strategy, product strategy, and, some of these kind of inform the development of the other. How do you see, the multiple strategies that a company needs to develop? How do you see them fit together?
Yeah, again, I think the idea is and you're going to hear this theme throughout from me, is this idea of integration. That all of these are all part of the same piece. They're all going after the same thing, which is our vision, right? There's a great book by a woman named Erica Anderson called Being Strategic. In that book, Erica defines being strategic as this idea of consistently making core directional choices that get us closer to our hoped for future. Okay, so it's consistently making these core directional choices that get us closer to our hope for a future. That's her thesis on her definition of how she defines strategic. I think it's brilliant. And it's that kind of a definition that is the unifying element amongst all those that you described, right? So you can't have a product strategy that is separate and distinct from your brand strategy, that's separate and distinct from your digital strategy, that's separate and distinct from your global strategy, right? That cannot be, because they are all part of one strategic vision of where you're going. And what those are different execution arms underneath the main strategy. So again, this idea of mindset shift on how we think about strategy versus like that we're not going to have a strategic plan for product, right? We have a strategic plan, and how we execute and realize that vision, we're going to use product to do that. And here are the ways we're going to use product to do that. We're going to use our brand to do it. And here are the ways we're going to use brand. We're going to use our field leaders to do that. And here's the way we're going to use field. We're going to use compensation plan. Right? So it's all one strategy. Those are simply execution arms against realizing it.
I love that. So each is anchored in kind of that ultimate goal, that ultimate end future state. And, each has a part to play in helping to reach that future. I love that. Thank you for that.
And if we can incorporate that in our organizations, then think of all the things that fall away, right? Then you don't have the conflict between the vision of the head of product and what they're trying to do and accomplish that's in conflict with the head of sales and what they're trying to do. All those tensions, they don't go away. Let's be real. We all have different passions and disciplines, and there should be some healthy tensions, but the alignment starts to come in play, right? And there starts to get boundaries around it.
So what are some of the common landmines that a company, that an executive team might encounter when kind of starting their strategic planning process?
Yeah, because this all sounds really good, right? I mean, you can listen and you're like, oh yeah, that we should do that, right? But then Tuesday rolls around and the month-end close wasn't what you wanted it to be. And there's a leader on the phone who's upset about the car program, and your board meeting is coming up next week, and you've got to create like that. Those are the landmines, right? The focus, the distractions, those things that pop up. So it takes great discipline to have this. And you know what it really is? We talk about a lot in our field organizations about how belief is actually what drives it, this belief that there is a greater future, this belief that when we put effort in, we'll get reward out. It's a belief issue internally too, right? As an organization, as a leadership team, you really need to believe that a well-executed strategic planning process is the path to solving a lot of the challenges. It is the path to eroding and getting rid of those roadblocks and those things that cause us to get off track and cause our teams to get disgruntled and all that other stuff, right? So it's about embracing as a leadership team, this is a process. And then Wayne, it's about sticking with it, because it takes a couple years to really get in a flow with it, to really see the benefits, to really understand culturally how it shakes out. So it's sticking with it, not losing it on the first quarter when you missed an execution date and something else happened.
Yeah, I think that is so important. I think all of us, internally at a company as well as the field, have experienced that whiplash from changing strategies and direction maybe too frequently, not letting it really kind of as you talk about, integrate into the fiber of the company, the fiber of the duplication model in the field. So I love that. Absolutely. Yeah. Like once you understand that strategy, just stick to it for a while. You can tap it in a new direction. You can adjust based on external activities, but still you're kind of all kind of rowing in the same direction.
And don't let me misspeak, Wayne. Like the idea of I'm not talking about having a rigid strategic plan, right? We need to make sure we're bringing in and allowing space for innovation, ideation, great new ideas. Often, because look, our industry is made up of entrepreneurial CEOs, right? Like that's how it works, who are always out there learning, listening, coming up with ideas, thinking of things, right? And in an organization that doesn't have a good strategic process, often what'll happen is they'll come in with a great idea. They saw a TED Talk last night. We need to do this. And all of a sudden the whole organization is just pivoted, charge, right? Well, and often those kinds of leaders reject the idea of a formal strategic process because they fear they're going to feel constrained or be constrained, right? That there isn't room for innovation. And that's critically important. So a technique I've used is to build into the process this idea of a great idea filter. So bring your ideas, bring that innovation, bring that insight, bring the light bulb moment. Let's then take that, bounce it up against the strategic plan that we have, evaluate it, and decide, is it a good fit? It may be genius. We got to make sure that we have space for genius. And so we incorporate that then into the plan and execute. It's also good to sort out, because sometimes it's not always genius. Sometimes it's just a little distraction. And so by doing that in a disciplined way, we can filter out the distractions too, which help bring nice calm to an organization too, which is always welcome.
No, I love that. Again, you bring up a really interesting point about the channel in general, in that a lot of the people running the companies today are the founder, are the kind of the founding CEO. And in the direct selling channel, they stay a lot longer. They stay involved a lot longer in the life cycle than is typically found in other channels. And so I think it was their vision that got the company there. So building in that ability to kind of test and validate. And again, I love how you said kind of leave room for vision and great ideas.
Yeah, and not reluctantly, right? Do it joyfully, because that recognizing with honor and respect, because recognizing it was their vision that got us where we are, right? It's that kind of ideation that will keep us alive and fresh and new and modern and clean. Like, so it's about embracing the new ideas. And too often organizations don't do that. Right? There's this idea, this sort of eye rolling, this like, oh, here we go again, blah. But changing, when it's done in the format of a structure like I'm talking about, the organization actually can have a whole different attitude towards it, because it feels fun, it feels good, because it's part of the plan, as opposed to feeling like a change in plan, which humans don't like.
Sure, absolutely. No, I love that. So who do you see kind of owns this process? Is it collectively owned? Is it driven by a role, an individual? Who do you see as kind of spearheading, the strategic planning process?
Yeah, I think companies that do it really, really successfully, again, this integration, right? It really is incorporated as an element in every single executive's daily operations. However, there is a little bit of housekeeping associated with it, right? There's a little bit of keeping it on track, keeping the light burning, right? And so I think the most successful things I've seen is when there is, depending on the size of the organization, one, maybe two or three people that are assigned with just keeping that strategic plan going through the organization, not doing it, not executing it. This isn't a strategic team, right? It's not like, oh, who does strategy? They do. No. We all do strategy, right? Because everything we're doing is strategic. They're the ones who are just helping us stay on track with it. They're a little bit of an accountability group that just comes alongside and does check-ins, right? Because strategic plans are about executing. And so they can do check-ins on how are we doing on that? We said we'd have that by next month. Are we on track? Are we not? Are there roadblocks? Can we help? So they're almost facilitators of just getting the business leaders to stay on point. They'll also be the flag raisers when they're like, hey guys, I know it's been a rough quarter and we've had this distraction or that distraction, but we all said we wanted to do these things. Do we all still feel like that's important? And that's a person that either whether it's a person or a team really needs to be interfacing at the senior level, whatever you call that, the C-suite level in your organization, whatever that is. They really need to be integrating and having those conversations at that level, because that's where the tone is set for staying on track.
So shifting into the other side of the coin, the innovation side. So a lot of companies, in direct selling, we know the importance of excitement and momentum, and a lot of times that is new products or programs or something like that. So a lot of times I think companies really are doing, they're innovating without even really realizing, especially kind of incremental innovation. Whether it's kind of enhancement to an existing product going to an existing market. How should a company kind of jump from the incremental innovation, whether they realize that's what they're doing or not, into more of the disruptive or the radical innovation, kind of these bigger moves? How can they make that jump?
Well, I think first they have to decide that they want to make that jump. I'm not necessarily convinced, Wayne, that every company out there needs to be, doing disruptive innovation. I'm not sure that's actually true. Some companies are not particularly good at it. They're not wired that way, right? That isn't in their founding values. It's not what excites them. It's not, and so don't undervalue incremental innovation, right? You can certainly create an incredibly successful organization that creates income opportunities for lots and lots and lots and lots of people all around the world through incremental innovation. where it's challenging is if you actually are a company that's wired for that has the DNA to have breakthrough innovation, have transformation innovation. Maybe that's what got you started, but you've lost that along the way. I think that's where it's really interesting to say those companies that are wired that way do have that spark. How do we make sure we can help them keep that flame alive? Because the industry needs breakthrough innovation, right? If nothing else, to create other companies that can fast follow and keep it all going, right? So getting from where you're at a place of sort of staleness to that spark, it all comes back to that strategic planning process to say one of these vision elements, one of these things that we said we want to do as a company is to have this sort of disruptive innovation, right? So then how are we going to execute against that? It's about being deliberate about it, right? And then putting good measures in place, because disruptive, each company needs to define that for themselves. What does that mean for them? What would that look like for them? Paint a picture for what that means. Does that mean it's a new category? Does that mean that we're going to completely transform the user experience of the product that we sell? Does it mean that we're going to have different delivery mechanisms? Does it mean that we're going to go and instead of a physical thing, we're going to make it a digital thing and modernize it, right? So it can be different for different companies and different disciplines. But again, working through that same process, getting very specific about what that looks like, and then picking that what's the first step to do it, right? Maybe we need to ideate, right? Maybe we haven't done a greenfield innovation day in a decade, right? Let's go do that again. So things like that.
That's really interesting. So again, whether it's looking, at product innovation or process innovation or business model, you kind of talked about, bringing it into that planning process. So let's say a company is kind of new, they don't have a lot of complexity, maybe really limited portfolio. They might only be in the US or one market. So, complexity is low. Is there a good place to start, or is the answer, it depends? And the result, the answer will come out of that process.
I don't think it depends. I think that a good place to start is to make sure you have a really clear picture of what it is you want to be doing as a company. And it doesn't matter if you're a brand new startup, or as you say, you don't have a lot of complexity, you're simple. Maybe you have one product, one comp plan, one thing, but just the place to start is to articulate really clearly internally to everyone exactly what you want to be. And then be really honest about how far away you are from that, right? Or close if we're being optimistic, but let's assume there's a gap of some size for most organizations. Some are off camera, right? And some are pretty aligned, but the magic is in filling the gap, right? So wherever you are as a company, whatever your complexity, whatever your innovation history is, whether you're a 102-year-old company or a 1-year-old company, really clear picture what it is you want to be. What do you want to look like? What do you want to feel like? What do you want people to say about you? What do you want the headlines to be when you're featured on the magazine covers, right? What is that story that you're telling? And then where are you now compared to that? And then building the bridges that get you from here to here. That's where you start. And again, that can look like different things, right? It can look like programs. It can look like website. It can look like digital strategy. It can look like product. It can look like a bunch of stuff, but it's being honest about this, crystal clear about this, and then practical about the stuff in the middle.
Yeah. I love kind of having that, using that North Star to kind of inform the process and understand where you are in relation to that ideal end state. That's awesome.
And make it a living thing. Right? Make it a living thing. It's not like what's our mission? Somebody go look at the wall behind reception. It's not. It's a living thing.
And that kind of gets to my next question for you around integration. So making it a living thing, but looking at the strategy process and innovation, you talked about the importance of integration and kind of bringing it into the day-to-day activities of the company. Can you elaborate on that a little bit to really explain what you mean by that integration philosophy?
Yeah. I think too often, even companies that have a pretty disciplined approach to strategy, they almost feel like it's like we have our plan, we have our strategy, and it's almost like it's a need to know basis. Like, I don't, like we've done it, right? But now we're just going to go, everybody else just keep working, right? We're going to do this. So it's a very deliberate, thoughtful and planful rollout of that plan through every single level of the organization. Okay. Every single person should get a physical copy of it. Every single person should have a digital copy of it. Every single person should hear about it, what it is when it happens. At the sort of highest levels, go 3-4 levels down at least to your director levels in companies. They should be part of the process, part of making it better, right? The senior team may come up with it, but that group needs to make it better so they own it, and then communicating that regularly. If you want like sort of practical and specifics, I think that looks like monthly updates. A lunch and learn, monthly Zooms are a great environment. Perhaps the person who is charged with keeping it on track or rotating team of executives can come on every month and just give an update. Where are we on these strategies? We said we were going to do this. Did we do it? If not, why not? Right? If yes, here it is. Good job. Now here's what we're doing next. We said we were going to do this. Are we on track? Not on track. Being honest and transparent about that overtly. Like that's to me what's critical. And saying things out loud like, hey guys, if you're doing something today and you can't find it on this strategic plan, please raise your hand and ask if you should be doing it, right? Like get engaged, get everybody's head engaged in this is what we're doing. So you just came over and asked me to do this. I don't understand how it fits, right? That will help. And again, that's why it takes a couple years to really get this kind of culture going in an organization. You have to want to, you have to want every employee to know about it and live it and breathe it, because it takes effort. It takes effort and consistency.
Yeah. So why do so many of us struggle to really integrate, strategies and innovation, into the fabric of the company? And, you mentioned a couple of the things. It could be, a cadence of check-ins and reminders. What are some things we can do to kind of overcome those struggles to make sure that we integrate those strategies properly?
Well, I do think it comes down to belief a little, right? There's a great motivational speaker I heard years ago, I don't even remember who it was, who talked about people will never change until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, right? And there's a little bit of a dopamine hit that you get when you're not operating strategically, right? I mean, there's a thrill from solving a crisis every single day, right? There's an energy that comes from just reacting to whatever hits you that day. And it feels gratifying because you solved that problem and you fixed that thing. And strategy is a little more tedious, right? People don't like things that take 2 years to really realize the benefit of it, right? Like it's a human nature thing. And so that's why companies don't do it. And it's effort, right? It's hard to be consistent. Right? It's easy to decide you're going to do a lunch and learn every single month and update your entire organization on it. And then it's super easy to push it because you had a crisis that you had to do. And then all of a sudden you missed one and you missed two, and then you don't want to go back because you've missed four. Like it falls away. So it is about believing in the benefit of it and talking to people. Like what I would encourage people to do is talk to companies who have done this well. Let them paint a picture for you of how it can transform your working environment, because you have to see that. You have to believe that in order to put the effort in to make it happen.
Oh, absolutely. You've given, incredible insights, incredible kind of tips for really helping to build out these processes of strategy and innovation and integrating them into the company. I want to start wrapping up with just kind of a couple questions that I like to end each podcast with. But first, as you look at the direct selling industry, or you're sitting there looking at your clients' business and what they're up to, what keeps you up at night? What's that thing out there that's kind of looming, that's potentially worrying you?
I think it's that. I'm going to switch it a little and make it what I really hope for. It's like a positive negative, right? So I guess what keeps me up at night in terms of a fear is that the leaders of companies in our industry won't be bold enough. But I'm going to turn that into a positive, because my hope is that leaders in this industry right now will see the incredible opportunity that we have. This last year has shown us our fields are resilient. They can take more change than we think they can, right? They are capable of pivoting. They are capable of rising to whatever occasion we would like to throw at them. And this industry is at a pivotal time, whether it's regulatory, thoughts and concerns and nervousness, or frankly, just consumer behavior that's changing at a rapid rate. We have an incredibly special window right now. And so my hope is that leaders of organizations, whether you're a well-established, influential pioneer in this industry or a brand new startup, my hope is that leaders of those companies are bold enough to see that opportunity and committed enough to make those choices that will shift our industry just enough, not a massive pivot, shift enough to accommodate so we can be that leading force for the next 100 years that we have been for the last.
Oh, I love that so much. Again, it is, I totally agree with you. It is a very unique time for everybody in the channel. I do think direct selling companies are perfectly positioned, if they do things right, to take advantage of some of these changing dynamics, these tailwinds that 2020 created. So you may have just answered this, but kind of my last question is, what gets you up in the morning? If something keeps you up, what gets you up in the morning? And it may be what you just said.
I think it's wrapped up in that. Yeah. I think it's about what excites me is helping people see a vision bigger than they could before, helping them see that what's possible is actually a whole lot more than what they might have thought is possible. And that's whether it's I'm talking to a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or whether I'm talking to a brand new direct seller who is trying to craft a new and different life for himself or herself, right? The same concept applies. What's possible in this world is so much more than you think it is. We just need to come together, craft a plan, and start walking.
Thank you for that. And thank you so much for your time today and for being here. Where can people go to learn more about Bridgehead Collective and about you?
Yeah, go to our website. We're at www.bridgeheadcollective.com, or shoot us an email at discovery@bridgeheadcollective.com. And we'd love to hear about what you're up to and see if we can help in any way. This has been really fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Heather. Appreciate it.